Crash Bandicoot!
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the day has finally arrived. The day where I review the Crash Bandicoot N Sane Trilogy. Available currently only on PS4, and probably staying that way, with no official confirmation of it moving to the Xbox One. This is the game that I bought the console for. Not for Bloodborne, not for any of that stuff. As soon as N Sane Trilogy was announced, I bought this console with the money that I got from my family and friends on my birthday this year. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, first we have, of course, Crash Bandicoot 1. The all-time classic that started all of the madness that we have today. The return, the initial excitement over Crash, everything, all started here. The game seems to be built best for this game specifically. Now, a lot of people will challenge what I have to say there because they'll say, oh, well, have you played the high road? Of course I played the high road. Have you done this? Have you done that? I've done everything, just about, except for get every platinum relic. I played Stormy Ascent and everything. So, what does Crash 1 have to offer? Well, just like the original, there's not really a whole lot you can do besides go through the levels. While they have updated the checkpoint system to now be so that you don't have to restart a level every time you fail to get a new gem, or to get the gem. There are 5 color gems in every single Crash game. Everyone knows about that has played Crash before. And the levels that have the colored gems in Crash 1, you still have to complete without a single death, which I love that mechanic. I love that they paid homage to that mechanic in some way, shape, or form. Now, it's going to infuriate you. I won't lie. The levels that they chose to color gems are tough as fuck. That being said, there is something so satisfying about beating that level you've been grinding at for 2-3 hours. There's something so satisfying about finally getting that gold relic. There is something so satisfying about it. The controls work for the most part. Now, there's times where, because of the new physics, which are modified Crash 3 physics across all 3 games, it's the same physics engine. The way the momentum works and all of that jazz makes it a little difficult at times. There's jumps on levels like the high road and other levels where you could make a jump very easily in the original that now you may no longer make because the jumping is not the same as you remember it. And that is why my recommendation is to play Crash 2 and or 3 first, so that you can get used to the physics. Even the developers recommended that. Now, a lot of people are looking at that as a cop-out and something that they shouldn't have said. It doesn't bug me that much that they said that. They even admitted that they changed the physics to a new engine and that is what made the game more difficult, which is fine. But bringing back the difficulty of Crash 1 was actually a really good idea if you ask me, because now it's just as hard as we remember, in a different way. I have decided to give Crash 1 a score of 8 because I kept coming back. I got through the game and I got all the gold relics. I said, I'm done. I never have to play it again because it was after I finally got that last gold, which I'm pretty sure was the high road, and I was done. I didn't ever have to play it again. But then I found myself craving it again, and again, and again, and again. So, I kept going back and going for platinum relics, just trying to beat my best times, and to this day, I'm still doing that. And so my initial score for Crash 1 was a 7. I raised it to an 8 after I realized how well it truly works and how much I love it. Now then, without any further ado, and anything further on Crash 1, we now move on to Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back. Probably the first game that most people played. Oh boy. Don't get me wrong. I loved the entirety of the N Sane Trilogy. The Cortex Strikes Back. Apparently I can't speak. Cortex Strikes Back was still pretty well done, but there's a lot that makes it difficult, which again isn't bad, but this time it was kind of bad for the game to make it more difficult. First of all, the ice physics are pretty abysmal, and it's hard to adapt to from the old games, which I know, it's a new game, I have to adapt, blah, 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 but the ice physics don't always make sense, because sometimes you'll stop even if you're in midair and coming off the ice, or going on the ice, and it just makes it harder and more complicated than it really needs to be. However, the game does still look great here. And the addition of time trials to Crash Bandicoot 2 was a natural fit. That was something that I missed in my Crash 1 part. The time trials in Crash 1 were a good addition, but you could tell it wasn't really built for that. Crash 2 feels like a natural fit. It feels like they were meant to be. Especially because now, when you beat the final boss in Crash 2, you get the speed shoes, which were originally only available in Crash 3. My only issue here, though, is that the cycles in this game are a little bit difficult to depend on. You might not get the cycle that you thought you were going to get, even if it's, you did the same thing and everything as the previous run. This cycle might be a little different. With that being said, oh, and there are some new, what's the word I'm looking for here? There are a couple of other additions to this game, such as you can no longer get the red gem early in Snogo no matter what you do. They moved it up a lot. And there's a couple other things that they did to make backtracking more backtracky, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. So, I'm giving Crash Bandicoot 2 a 7. While the addition of the new stuff was great, it's not enough to raise it up to 8. Plus, the new physics they work, but I think that they did the best in Crash 1, and the next game that I'm going to visit now, Crash Bandicoot Warped. Never officially titled with a 3, but still the third game, Crash Warped is the game that got me gaming. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, so I'll put a little link to skip this. Crash Bandicoot 3 is my second favorite game of all time, under Super Mario Bros. 3. Because those two games are the games that got me gaming. I wouldn't be sitting here doing this review if it wasn't for Crash 3's original existence on the PlayStation 1. So naturally, this was the game in the trilogy that I held the highest standards to. So does it hold up? Yes and no. This is actually the lowest rated game in the trilogy. For me. While initially the game feels great, they got the physics from a modified way of Crash 3. This is where the controls have their time to shine. While I do like that, it does not go without its issues. For instance, we have the jet ski levels and the motorcycle levels. The jet ski levels, after a little while, you can kind of get used to. It's not as painful as what the motorcycle levels have done. So, the controls in the motorcycle levels have changed. The turning is very wonky, for lack of a better word. Or I guess wumpy would be a better word to use here this time. I've even straight up had the controls on the motorcycle levels lock up on me for no apparent reason. As in, I'll just be driving, minding my own business, when all of a sudden, I can't turn. I'll be mid-turn, and I'll stop. And a lot of it happens at the beginning of one of the motorcycle levels, of the first one, Hog Ride. And that's just unacceptable. I can't give that a bypass. I can't overlook that. I can't say, well, okay, they had to, rebuild it from the ground up. I can't give something that major a bypass, especially since at the time of this review, it's been out for almost more than a month. And they haven't fixed that. That is a major issue that I really can't handle. And the jet ski controls, I mean, they're different. They're a lot different. The ramps don't always work the way they used to. In fact, they don't just not always work the way they used to. They just don't work the way they used to. Which again, isn't inherently a terrible thing, I guess. But I much prefer the older controls and find it very difficult to control the jet ski at times. That being said, I think Crash 3 might be the best looking game in the trilogy. I mean, the minute I stepped foot in Toad Village, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be a good looking one. But looks aren't everything when it comes to gaming. So unfortunately, I have to give Crash 3 a 6 out of 10. It hurts to give it that because, like I said, it is my favorite of the original trilogy. But I can't rate it higher than a 6 because of those issues. Something I didn't touch upon yet in the entirety of the trilogy is the music, which you are hearing in the background when I'm not showing game footage. I think that the music is great. There is a couple tracks where I do prefer the originals, but for the most part, the new music is amazing. They did well by Josh Mansell. It's a shame that they didn't bring him back, but it's okay. They still did a great job paying homage to him. So, with that being said, it's time to give this game a full score. Crash Bandicoot N Sane Trilogy averages out to a 7 out of 10 with the scores given previous. While the new controls are good, they don't fit every game. And there are still some glaring issues with the game that have yet to be fixed almost a month after release, which is something I can't accept. So, if you want an overall recommendation of whether to buy this game, yes, absolutely. Just remember, if you played the old games, I really do recommend that you play Crash 2 or 3 first. I didn't, I stuck it out, and just ask either of my partners on here, Nirvana or Dragonheart. There were some really tough times for me where I was this close to giving up. But I definitely recommend Crash 2 or 3 first. And if you're a newcomer to the series, I would still play them first because they're not as difficult and you won't get as burnt out as quickly. So, yes, I absolutely recommend the N Sane Trilogy to any fan of Crash. New, old, young, old, wherever you came from, wherever you went, wherever you came from, Cotton Eye Gent. And with that, I bid you adieu. Just remember, always wear a condom.
Yeah!